So I'll go ahead and take the baton from Kanye because he might still be napping. We don't even know. He never got to express himself more fully before the world had a breakdown and pretended like he had, I don't know, murdered a bunch of Palestinian children. When he was actually expressing was that people were behaving like they were in a mafia, behaving like they were in a mafia, behaving like they were in a mafia.
To those I've hurt, by Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury, the one inside my skull, went unnoticed. Comprehensive scans were not done, neurological exams were limited, and the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. That medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis. Bipolar disorder comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. Once people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when, in fact, this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and a 2 times to 3 times higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about this disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, and unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I love the most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and the exhaustion of trying to love someone who was, at times, unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and even sold t-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar type 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall, that lead to poor judgment and reckless behavior that oftentimes feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state, and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I am not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people, to the Black community, which held me down through all the highs and lows in the darkest of times. The Black community is, unquestionably, the foundation of who I am. I am so sorry to have let you down. I love us. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic thinking and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is not a state of constant mental illness. When you go into the manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal. And that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. I have found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Different people speak of being in manic or depressive episodes of a similar nature. I read their stories and realized that I was not alone. It's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I am not bipolar but merely experiencing symptoms of autism. My words as a leader in my community have real global impact and influence. In my mania, I lost complete sight of that as I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living. I have newfound, much-needed clarity. I'm pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I'm not asking for sympathy or a free pass, though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. With love, Ye.
I want to start with Ye, Kanye West. I've got to say, personally, I know that you've had a good relationship with him. You've talked to him and so on, as I have done. I interviewed him. try to give him a bit of benefit of the doubt over various things. I got to say, his sort of brazen stuff now on a daily, sometimes minute-by-minute basis on X with the swastikas, the Nazis, and so on, I just find it utterly repellent. Has anything he's been doing in the last 2-3 weeks changed your mind about what's going on here with him?
Okay, so first I just want to say that I definitely told your producers that I didn't want to speak about Ye, but it's totally fine if you want to ask me the question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. Well, that wasn't communicated
Yeah.
to me, but if you don't mind, I'd just be curious about your view.
Yeah, sure. So my view has been pretty consistent in that when you have a real relationship with someone, you shouldn't be lashing them in the public for anything. There's something about the entire world having commentary about Kanye when he tweets, and that exact same part of the world telling us that we have to remain mum when Bibi Netanyahu literally goes DEFCON 3, but Kanye tweets something about DEFCON 3. That just makes me uncomfortable and feels really disingenuous. And like I said, when you have an actual relationship with someone, if you have anything to say to them, you should say that to that person directly. And so I'm just not going to partake in this sort of like Judas culture of stabbing people in the front when you have a real relationship with them. And I've maintained that consistently, and I'm not going to break that code today.
I mean, some would say, look, I just want to play this clip and get your response to this. I mean, this is him doing, Ku Klux Klan imagery with swastikas and so on. It's so brazen. It's so taunting. And you talk about people who are directly attacking people. He's directly attacking Jewish people when he does this and making them feel extremely uncomfortable, extremely threatened by this, because he's got 32 million people following him on X alone. His social media firepower to galvanize hate against the Jewish people is being laid bare, isn't it, in real time?
Just a question for you. When you saw the Klansman hoodie, why did you say taunting against Jewish people but didn't mention anything about black people? Yeah, but it's just interesting that of the two things you chose to lean into Jewish people and not to speak about what the Klansman hood represents.
Let me ask you, if I can, about the allegations that you have made anti-Semitic comments. And in particular, when you said on Instagram, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. Now, many people who are Jewish found that deeply offensive. They wanted to know, what did you mean by going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people? Because DEFCON 3, as you know, is a heightened state of awareness for military action. So what did you mean by that? Here's your chance to clarify what you meant by DEFCON 3 on Jewish people.
Well, thank you for allowing me to say what I meant due to the fact that I was blocked by Jewish people after I said that. So I wasn't actually allowed to say what I was about to say. But what I was going to say is, I was going to talk about all of the contracts, all of the misdealings that I dealt with as an entertainer. Being that I'm an entertainer, I've been wronged so many times by Jewish businessmen. And the reason why I say people, if a black man is caught in the car with drugs or a gun, and there's 3 other black guys in the car with him, guess what? They're all going to jail. So the reason why I say people is I want those businessmen's wives and fathers, mothers, grandmothers, and kids to ask them, why is Ye so mad at us? Because they're taking money out of my children's mouths and putting it into their children's mouths. I'll give you this parallel and this analogy. If you take, I just talked to Irina Shayk, right? And if you look at a picture of her at age 14, this person is beautiful, like one of the most beautiful people that God has ever created, right? And if any man did her wrong at a young age, she would get to the point where maybe she would actually hate men. You've heard that terminology, right? So I'm at a point where I'm frustrated. I have the right to my anger, and I'm saying that people need to fix it. I'm not going to fix what I feel until what I'm feeling is fixed.
So I'll go ahead and take the baton from Kanye because he might still be napping. We don't even know. He never got to express himself more fully before the world had a breakdown and pretended like he had, I don't know, murdered a bunch of Palestinian children. What he was actually expressing was that people were behaving like they were in a mafia.
This is coming from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, records, the vault. The subject, Tupac Shakur. It reads, title, as you can see, omitted. Throughout this document, there's information omitted from the original file. Whenever we come to omitted information, I'll simply say blank. Tupac Shakur, victim, deceased. Eazy-E, victim, deceased. Death threats, Los Angeles. Armed and dangerous. Now, this is the synopsis of this overall investigation. Request to open a 266A matter regarding death threats and extortion involving rap music stars Tupac Shakur, deceased, Eazy-E, deceased, and other victims yet unidentified. During the interview, blank advised writer that blank and others yet unidentified have been extorting money from various rap music stars via death threats. The scheme involves blank and other subjects making telephonic death threats to the rap star. Subjects then intercede by contacting the victim and offering protection for a fee. The victim and their families are taken to a safe haven, usually a private estate, and are protected by gun-toting bodyguards associated with the Jewish Defense League, the JDL. The subjects convince the victim they have worked a deal out with the persons making the death threats, and the threats cease. The victim then pays the subject for the protection services rendered and resume their normal lifestyle with no fear of further death threats. Blank identified Eazy-E, deceased, who reportedly was targeted by subjects for extortion prior to dying from complications associated with AIDS. Eazy-E resided in Van Nuys, California. In addition to the aforementioned, on October 8th, 1996, Detective blank LAPD and writer interviewed a Los Angeles source of proven reliability concerning the ODEH bombing matter. During that interview, source corroborated the above information. According to source blank, reportedly enlists the services of one blank, not further identified at this time, whom source described as a caper or ambulance chaser to assist with the extortion scheme. Source stated that blank used this same scheme when he would rip off drug dealers. Source stated that monetary amount being extorted is in the $50,000 range. Writer is familiar with captioned subjects as their names have surfaced in the ODEH investigation, and also a case captioned Jewish Defense League.
This is the first authentic story of how the syndicate controls and operates every racket and vice in the nation. Based on the bullet-riddled pages of the bestseller by former Assistant New York District Attorney Burton Turkis and Sid Bader, the bombshell that exploded it all. The hoods, the sleazy babes, the wanton gunmen who accounted for the incredible total of approximately 1,000 killings executed by Murder Incorporated.
One of the biggest complaints and concerns about the hip-hop culture is its influence on the younger generations. But who is the influencer of these artists? Where did they get their stage names from? Many hip-hop artists took on the names of Italian mobsters, Panamanian mobsters, Brazilian mobsters, and even religious cult leaders such as Jim Jones. However, there's another community some hip-hop artists took their names from that seems to go unnoticed. Let's touch on a little history of a group of gangsters from the Jewish community. This is coming from the Jewish Almanac, 1980, page 60 and 61. It says, they had names like Phil, the Stick Kovalak, Charles, King Solomon, Waxy Gordon, Louis Shadows Kravitz, Heavy Big Greenie Greenberg, Dandy Phil Castile, Jacob Greasy Thumb Guzik, Abe Kid Twist Rellies, Jacob Gura Shapiro, Max Boo Boo Hoff, Abner Longy Zawilman, Arthur Dutch Schultz Flagenheimer, Jacob Yasha Katzenberg, Arnold the Brain Rothstein, Louis Lepke Buchalter, and Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. That's right, this is where Benny Siegel took his name from. What they had in common was that they were all American gangsters, and they were all Jews. It would not be an exaggeration to say that their influence on organized crime in the United States during the 1920s and the 1930s rivaled, if not exceeded, that of their Italian counterparts. Skipping down to another section of this page, it says, for a time they dominated the rackets, in other words, racketeering, in Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, Newark, Philadelphia, and New York. A composite portrait of the typical Jewish gangster of this period would show him to be a second-generation American male of Eastern European parentage, city-bred, and in his early 20s. His parents would be working class and traditional rather than Orthodox Jews. That is, they would observe a number of the Jewish traditions and holidays, but would not comply with all the religious injunctions that an Orthodox Jews required to perform. Now, skipping over to page 61, it says, it was Lepke who campaigned for a special enforcement group to keep the peace and ensure that the syndicate's decisions were carried out, sometimes referred to as Murder Incorporated, Murder Inc. for short. This crack corps of killers was made up primarily of Jews from Brownsville, East New York, and Ocean Hill. They became the official execution squad for the syndicate. When Dutch Schultz boasted that he would do things his way, he was killed, and it was Charlie the Bug Workman and Mendy Weiss, two Murder Incorporated, in other words, Murder Inc. for short, killers who did the job on order from Lepke.
This is a trainer, but come to find out, he's actually Canadian intelligence, but this is my trainer. So this shows you the kind of handlers that are around the superstars in California, right? So it says, I'm going to help you one of a couple ways. First, you and I sit down and have a loving and open conversation, but you don't use cuss words. And everything that is discussed is based in fact, and not some crazy stuff that dumb friend of yours told you or you saw in a tweet. Second option, I have you institutionalized again, where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to zombie land forever. Play date with the kids just won't be the same. This is the way a Hollywood trainer was talking to me to force me to go and apologize. You think about if Harley was part of intelligence, right? What kind of people you think are surrounding my kids? What kind of people you think are in that house?
But very few people took that claim seriously. In fact, it was exactly the kind of thing a crazy person would say. My trainer drugged me into submission. He's trying to make me into a zombie. Right. Sure he did. Have another olanzapine shot, Kanye. You look tired. So that's where the story stood until the other day. Nobody believed Kanye West. Then West posted something remarkable on Twitter, which for some reason virtually all of American media ignored, which is odd because media outlets are not usually in the business of ignoring remarkable things, but they did. And what he posted was a picture of a text exchange that he had had with Harley Pasternak. Pasternak was explaining that West had better stop saying, quote, crazy stuff. In other words, he'd better get back on script, or else he would be severely punished. Quote, second option, if you don't shut up, quote, I have you institutionalized again, where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to zombie land forever. Play date with the kids just won't be the same.
They said the reason why I couldn't be on Daily Wire is is the Israelite comment. And every black person is fine with calling ourselves black and being called black. But when I bring up the idea that we're Jew because we are from Africa, the Bible was the majority is like set in Africa, then it's challenging. And we talk about on the George Floyd documentary, it's called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. The idea that black people are not Jew is the greatest lie that's ever sold.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.